If liberals in the Senate would rather play political games and shut down the government instead of making a small down payment on fiscal discipline and reform, I say, shut it down.
Congressman Mike Pence joins me now. Congressman, it is always good to chat with you. So I hear today you had a good time in front of a rally of your Tea Party loyalists, and you said you are ready to pick a fight. So I'm just asking, are you picking a fight with your own party or with the Democrats at this point?
You know, this is really a fight with liberals in the Senate. House Republicans have done their work. We found a way to take spending this year below pre-stimulus, pre-bailout levels. That was required $61 billion in budget cuts. We also defunded Obamacare, defunded Planned Parenthood. We've sent that to the Senate already once. We're going to send it to them again.
Well, Congressman, you know I'm going to hold your feet to the fire because I wrote an article last week saying the president should say we're going to shut down the government unless you guys came forward with real proposals to do what you've been claiming you want to do, which is to reform the government. I haven't seen anything in that $61 billion that you talk about that talks about Social Security, Medicaid, Medicare, or defense. You're offering to cut $61 billion when we have a deficit of $1.6 trillion. So
Right.
This is nothing more than window dressing. Let's get to the meat and potatoes here. What are you going to do on Social Security to change that system right now?
Well, look, this is not a lot to write home about. $61 billion against a $1.65 trillion deficit. It isn't the big lifting, but it's keeping our promise. It's an important first step. It's important that House Republicans keep our word with the American people, but we'll get to what you're talking about.
I'm waiting.
In the next couple of weeks, you're going to see Republicans do what Democrats didn't do in the last Congress. We're going to produce a budget, and we're going to have entitlement reform in that budget. So I promise to come back on and talk to you about that then. Right now, we're trying to keep our word to the American people.
Wait, your promise to the American people was you're going to balance the budget. You're not even willing to vote to raise the debt limit. And we'll get to that in just a minute. I haven't heard a word from the leadership of your party about the things that really matter here. I don't want to hear about non-defense discretionary spending, 12% of the budget that is irrelevant to what's driving our deficit. You and I both know the numbers. I want to hear, are you going to rein in defense spending? Are you willing to cut a few $100 billion out of defense, yes or no?
Look, you may have forgotten we had this thing called the Pledge to America. We included very specific promises to the American people. This $61 billion in cuts represents us keeping a major promise of the Pledge to America to the American people. I think keeping your promise is important. I think finding budget cuts this year and making good on those promises is vitally important. But I want to stipulate to you, you're absolutely right. This is nothing more than a down payment on fiscal discipline. The only way we're really going to change the fiscal direction of our national government is if we get serious about spending across the board. We look for savings in discretionary spending. We look for savings even in defense spending. And we look to reform entitlements, and Republicans are going to produce a budget that lays out a template for beginning the process of reforming entitlements and saving our nation from this sea of red ink.
Look, Congressman, I've been waiting for months to get the specifics on that. A down payment in the world of business where I come from usually requires about 10%. You're not even making a down payment, and frankly, I don't want to parse the words with you.
And it's too much for Harry Reid.
Let's pivot for just a little bit. Let's talk about Bowles-Simpson. Bowles-Simpson, which garnered some bipartisan support, does that begin, in your mind, to make those serious cuts? I mean, they did real things when it came to tax policy, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and defense. What was wrong with their sort of bipartisan? They made the hard decisions.
You know, look, we may have accidentally found some agreement here. There was an awful lot
you and I are both shocked.
In the Bowles-Simpson Commission that I thought was very admirable. I thought both sides of the aisle came together, did serious work. I think that's why it's mystifying that the president included not one proposal from his own spending commission in the budget that he sent to Capitol Hill. We're not going to make that mistake when Republicans produce our budget. And you're going to see a lot of the kind of bold ideas, maybe not specifically the same, but you're going to deal with all the areas of the federal government. It's going to be in that budget.
What I want to do is talk about the big picture issues, tax reform. Are you going to come in with something about tax reform? We have a situation here where GE, which made enormous profits last year, a great company, but they paid no taxes. Is that fair and is that equitable? Are you going to do something on the tax side, the revenue side, to make it more equitable as part of this? Because you're cutting money from poor people left and right, which I disagree with. You know we disagree. Are you going to do something on the tax equity side?
Well, I don't know if it will be specifically part of the budget is about spending. and the revenue is a piece of that. But I think you're going to see Republicans. I personally am in favor of a flat tax for individuals and corporations, eliminating the loopholes. You remember the president actually talked about lowering the corporate tax rate, but doing away with a lot of the loopholes that allow many corporations to pay no taxes whatsoever. So I think we're going to have those conversations.
I want to come back to politics for a minute. Are you going to threaten to actually close down the government and deny your speaker, Speaker Boehner, the votes he needs to get a compromise through unless he gets up to $61 billion in cuts?
Well, look, it's not about denying things among Republicans. I think the question here is whether or not Harry Reid wants to shut down the government or whether he wants to accept what is a small down payment on fiscal discipline in the form of the bill that we've sent him now. We'll send him again tomorrow. Nobody wants to shut down the government, but if we don't take a stand right now to begin to turn the ship of state back toward fiscal solvency, we're going to shut down the future for our children and grandchildren, and that'd be a lot worse.
All right, Congressman, I know you got to run. We're going to continue this conversation. Look forward to those details you promised us. Thanks for showing up.
Count on it. Thanks.
My pleasure. It's always a great time to Congressman Pence. He and I do not agree on